Now, the museum opened right before President Obama left office, and that was in 2016, and a very memorable ceremony. But before we got to that ceremony, you had to get an architect to build a building, get a site, raise the money, and get the artifacts. So let's go through that. Let's take the money. How much did it cost to build that museum?
The museum basically cost $550 million to build, and we raised about $620 million to do that. Half of it was paid by the federal government and half by wonderful philanthropists and donors.
Did you ever think you could raise that much from the private sector when you started?
When I told my mother that I had to raise that amount of money, she said, that's more money than God can count. So I wasn't sure, but one of my great strengths is to be able to sort of look at the big picture and then put my head down and do the work. And so slowly but surely it began to work.
So when you got the money from the Congress and you got the money from the private sector, and then you had to figure out what are you going to put in the museum, artifacts. How many artifacts did you inherit?
Zero. We had no artifacts whatsoever, and at some point I thought, well, do we just do it without artifacts? But it's the Smithsonian. People come to see the Wright's flyer or the ruby slipper, so we needed to find these objects, and I didn't know exactly how to do it. And one day I sort of fell asleep in front of the television, and I woke up and Antique Roadshow was on. I had never heard of it. And so I suddenly said, what a great idea. So I stole the idea, called it Saving African American Treasures, and we took curators and conservators from around the Smithsonian and went around the country and helped people preserve grandma's old shawl or that 19th century photograph, and then people would bring things out and say, do you want this? And suddenly we found amazing things that I wasn't sure we could find.
How many artifacts total did you get?
We collected over 40,000 artifacts, of which about 4,000 were on display.
And 75% of them came from people's
75%
basements?
came from basements, trunks, and attics of people's homes.
Okay, and how many people have visited so far?
Over 7.5 million people.
And it's one of the few museums at the Smithsonian up to now where you can't just walk in because you need tickets because the demand is so great. And did you expect the demand to be that great?
I didn't. I knew it would be popular. It's the Smithsonian, but it really has become a pilgrimage site for many people, for African Americans, for non-African Americans, and we expected 4,000 people a day. We were getting 8,000 people a day. So we had to actually say you have to have tickets to get people in because the crowds were so great.
So every congressman and senator is calling you for tickets, I assume?
I am everybody's best friend.